Welcome to this video series on Wellness Program Resources. Our topic for this video is Wellness Program Results, ? Number 47. Well, as usual, I'd like to begin our discussion about Wellness Program Results by sharing with you a few of the stories about clients that I've worked with over the years. I would probably suggest that during the 80s and the 90s and the first decade of the 2000s, we basically really overpromised and oversold the results of wellness programs. And as a result, I think that we currently have a whole crop of wellness programs that are pretty minimally funded and not likely to be producing much in the way of health improvement and economic return. I think we've overpromised the results, and what we should really be doing is under-promising the results and over-delivering results. That's a much wiser business strategy for all of us. Now, in working with more than 1,000 employer wellness programs, I've had literally hundreds of discussions with senior management staff and individuals, situations, and group situations around the potential results of wellness programs. Eventually, I began to really experience a real lack of much understanding of what I would call the hierarchy of results, of what you need to establish and accomplish before you get some of the higher order kinds of return from your wellness program. And one group stood out as particularly representative, and it was a group that was actually the board of a large motorcycle corporation, about 8,000 employees. And when I was going through the discussion with them, they consistently asked me questions which showed that they really didn't understand much about the hierarchy of relationships between behavior change and then ultimately health improvement and health status changes and economic return. So their magical thinking is what I ended up really coalesced into a tool that I'm going to show you in a moment to help get a much clearer sense of what is actually involved in these kinds of programs in terms of potential results. The magical thinking is where people believe something, but they have no basis in fact or in truth to believe that. And the kinds of magical thinking that this particular board exhibited was, first of all, they really felt that every behavioral target, such as nutrition or exercise or stress or depression or anxiety, would in fact have the same kinds of results. So they had confusion about which issues in behavior that you work on and what the results are that are associated with that particular target. They also had the belief that every intervention they did would have somewhat equal results. So if they passed out pamphlets in the HR department, they thought it would produce the same kind of effects in terms of health plan reduction and health cost reduction. Another one of the magical thinking issues that they had was that results are independent of each other in a sense that they are not connected or linked in any fashion. Another one of the magical thinking ideas they had, beliefs, was it doesn't matter how many people actually participate in your program. If you just offer a program, it'll have an effect. And another one of the beliefs of magical thinking that they had was that health plan cost reduction is guaranteed with all wellness programs. Another one of the beliefs they had was that everybody wants to be well, and all we have to do is tell them how to be well, and they will in fact change their behavior. And finally, they really got through when I started to use a diagram that I'm going to show you in a moment called the hierarchy of results of wellness programs. And I developed it after that particular engagement into a tool that I then used repeatedly with executive groups. So let's begin by going over that tool that helped in this particular situation with a board of a motorcycle company that actually came to get, I think, a clearer understanding of the truthful nature of what potential results are possible with an employee wellness program. Now, as we consider how to use this tool, I'd like you to know, as usual, a link for this one-page tool is provided in the description for this video. You can download it for free, and I would recommend that you pause this video and then download it and then print out the tool if you want to take notes on it directly, and then restart the video and then follow along with me as I cover some of the highlights for this particular tool. Now, this tool is called the results hierarchy for your employee wellness program, and I want to start at the bottom of the document. So down at the bottom, you'll notice we start with a program that changes people's attention. So we have attention changes. We begin to do things like educational sessions or communications programs or any kind of event that begins to get people's focus on their own health and well-being. So those attention changes are a prelude to making and leading up to short-term behavior change. Once we have changed some of the issues around attention, we begin to help people get aware of what they, in fact, may need to look at in their own health and wellness decisions. The next area that we look at are knowledge changes. So as we provide information to people through coaching or through an online e-health portal or through a communication of a different kinds like a newsletter or various kinds of devices we use to provide information, we want to change their knowledge levels. So we want them to assimilate information and then to incorporate that into a higher knowledge level about their health and well-being. That's also called health literacy. And if you want some information from the National Academy of Sciences about our declining health literacy and healthcare literacy, then that relates to the process we all go through when we are doing an employee wellness program. The next area is attitude changes. So once we have a knowledge, our attitude begins to change. And we also need reinforcement, and we may need to have the help of norms in our social group or our workplace that have to do with taking better care of our health. But that attitude change is then usually a precursor to what's called a readiness to change. Now that's part of what the trans-theoretical model is of health behavior change. It's a very useful model. I found it to be very helpful in structuring wellness programs, but that readiness change means that they're getting ready to make a behavior change. There are 5 stages of readiness to change that go from pre-contemplation, not even thinking about it, to contemplation, to preparation, getting ready to change within 30 days, then action, you're doing it but not very consistently, to maintenance, where it really is a long-term habit and you are pretty consistent in following it. And then that's all leading up to short-term wellness behavior. So we can see behavior change that is usually anywhere from 2 weeks to maybe 6 weeks in duration, but it drops off after that period of time. So those are short-term, and we have to start with those. We've got to help people get to them. But you also notice this chasm in the middle here, and that chasm is between short-term behavior change and long-term behavior change. That's where most of our wellness programs fall down. We'll be covering a concept called AMSO pretty deeply in the next series of videos. And that is really how we get across the chasm between short-term behavior and long-term behavior. The next area up are health status changes. So we begin to see some changes in our cholesterol levels, or changes in our BMI, or our body weight, or blood pressure, blood sugar. There's a variety of different health-related health status changes that we go through. The next area up, once the health status changes have taken place, is we begin to see changes in the health risk prevalence. So we call those health risk changes, and they are essentially moving us from being perhaps high risk for a particular health behavior to moderate risk to low risk. So that phenomena is oftentimes what we call a health risk change taking place. And I'd like to point out to you this sequential, largely sequential. Now, sometimes we go around stages and we suddenly just decide to do something. So we can actually not go through everything that you see here in the hierarchy. But this hierarchy is pretty consistent for virtually all working populations. We may have some individual variation, but not a lot of group variation. And again, we have strategies we can pursue to get across the chasm between short-term behavior, long-term behavior. Then we start to see some changes in the way that our health status is measured, and that's oftentimes through our preventive screening or biometric testing. We then see some changes in the health risk prevalence in the population, more people becoming low risk, and fewer people becoming or staying high risk. We generally, all the way, the work of D. Eddington, who's now deceased, really demonstrated pretty scientifically that if we don't do anything to intervene with working populations, they will ultimately all become high risk. So that means that whatever health status measure is associated with things like exercise or good nutrition or smoking or heart health, they in fact will get worse if we don't do something about them. And then once we see health risk changes taking place, we generally see a change in disease prevalence. Now, diseases and conditions are what the International Classification of Disease, 11th Clinical Modification Agreement, states for us. And that just helps all healthcare providers around the world to be able to label things with the right and same diagnosis and procedural codes. So that allows us to do comparative work and analytic work between healthcare systems. So that next step is disease prevalence. So we want to see the number of people with hypertension go down. We want to see the number of people with presenting circulatory disease or cardiovascular disease go down. And the number of people with strokes go down. The number of people with chronic obstructive pulmonary disease secondary to tobacco use and habitual tobacco use go down. So there are measures and metrics that we can look at for each of these levels. And that's what a well-designed wellness program can do, is to actually classify and identify the amount of change happening at each of these levels as you proceed upwards. Now, as disease prevalence changes, we then also begin to see healthcare utilization changes. And so that means our physician visit rates, our hospital days, our surgical procedure rates, our use of urgent care facilities, our use of prescription drugs, our use of rehab, our use of surgical outpatient facilities. All of those utilization metrics then begin to change. And this, by the way, doesn't happen overnight unless we are doing some things to actually take on targets that have a faster occurrence from these lower order, what we call the lower order kinds of results for wellness programs versus the higher order. So the higher order is getting us more into the phenomena of health status and health improvement, and then the use of health services, and that's what we call the utilization measures, so healthcare utilization. Once we see changes in healthcare utilization, that usually comes out in the form of changes in our healthcare claims costs. And that's what actuaries and benefits consultants help us do, is to document that. And that's a lot of the work that I did over my professional career of actually documenting these kinds of things. And we have a great deal of literature that essentially says if you design a wellness program with this results hierarchy in mind, you can actually follow the changes that occur at each level. And again, they can occur faster if we're working on topics that have a quicker impact on healthcare use itself. And that may deal with things like injury prevention, where we're focusing on home injury prevention, or vehicular injury prevention, or recreational injury prevention, in addition to the usual work-related injury prevention and safety. So there are differences in the targets we choose and the results and how fast they occur. So those are the things that are part of the art, if you will, of doing worksite wellness programs. Once we see claims changes, and if we're in a self-insured medical environment and plan environment, then we can actually measure the effects in terms of cost. And then comparing it with the cost of our programming, we can then get to a return on investment or a value on investment, which is where we look at things like morale impacts of a wellness program, retention impacts of a wellness program, or recruitment impacts of a wellness program. But there are a range of VOI measures and metrics that we can use. So as you look through the various hierarchy here, we see that there are lower order results. We have the challenge of getting from short-term behavior, which is relatively easy to produce, to get to long-term behavior. The long-term behavior then has associated in a hierarchy changes that we usually want to achieve for whatever organization and or business that we may be working with. In summary, you can use this particular tool to really help bring some reality to our management expectations about our wellness program. I think it can also help you get your program onto a sound footing and a sound base. And we want to always remember it's better to under-promise and over-deliver rather than over-promise and under-deliver. Those are not good situations to be in. So good luck with this particular issue of the results hierarchy for your employee wellness program. In summary, this week's topic is about the importance of being realistic about the potential results of an employee wellness program. Narratives can be very powerful, but truth always wins out. And we want to be on the side of truth in terms of having legitimate outcomes and results that we produce with our wellness program effort. I want to thank you for watching this video, and be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, and new videos are published weekly. Now, for more information, search for the WellCert program. WellCert is the premier professional certification for wellness program leaders. Be sure to check out the program if you would want to improve your wellness programming skills. And remember, delivering great employee wellness programming is a high calling. Let's do our best to get the job done. Good luck with your wellness programming efforts.